Hi, I'm Mike DelRose Jr. with the DelRose McShane team of Caldwell Banker. I'm joined on this case study by my colleague Mike Simoni and my colleague Mike DelRose Sr. Today, we're going to be talking about an always fun topic, and that is when a fixer-upper or average property can become a financial liability.
Right. So, the assumption out there is we talk a lot about homes being prepared for sale, and uh, there's a lot of times where people don't have the wherewithal to do that. A home comes on the market, and clearly it has been either neglected or there are issues that will present themselves during a home inspection that need considerable attention. And so it's not always that we walk in a house and say, here it is, make the offer, move on and to the purchase. There are some issues that are involved in some houses.
The home inspection is a wonderful safety net, and you're never going to hear us say don't have a home inspection, or we recommend that you don't always have a home inspection when you can. You have a right to now with new Massachusetts law. We're going to do other case studies on the home inspection because I could talk about home inspections along with you guys for hours. I think they're fascinating. I learn all my property knowledge from home inspections. This is about pre-screening houses. You can't always see what's going on in pictures. You can make assumptions. Sometimes those are spot on, but you don't always know until you go see the house. So if you're a buyer and you're really excited about a property, what are the things we as agents are giving value and knowledge on for you to make better decisions for yourself?
Right. It's the process is if a home doesn't meet a person's needs because there's too much work for their ability, we want to head that off before they make an offer because making an offer is time consuming and it costs money because if they have a home inspection and the home doesn't go forward, could we have headed that off before they spent that money, before they took themselves out of the market for that week or two? If there was something we could have shared with them before that, they would not have made an offer in the first place and moved on to the next house.
And
So that's where our knowledge would come in.
and here's the thing, every buyer is different. We all have, I've worked with buyers that have you ever worked with any contractors?
Yeah, so right now I'm actually working with an electrician and he's looking for not necessarily a fixer-upper, but open to it. Specifically homes that have knob and tube wiring in the basement, because that's going to turn a lot of people off, where he can just repair that himself. So he's actually hoping we come across one that's move-in ready, but does have like a knob and tube still in the basement so that he can be ahead of the field on getting that home because he's willing to take on that property, whereas a lot of buyers are not.
I was actually in that exact same situation. I sold an investment property to my electrician, and he loved the fact he got a discount for the house being full of knob and tube wiring. But he also disclosed to me, like, yeah, I'd be charging $25,000
Right.
to
It's
a
an expensive
client.
repair.
Yeah, and this was 10, 12 years ago. So imagine what that cost in today's dollars.
Mhm. Right. And I think when we approach a home during the showing process, we're looking for things that turn up in a home. And let's use, say, a leaking gutter or flashing around a roof chimney. Uh, the fact is that the gutter may be one expense, but if it looks like it's been happening over time, the true expense and damage could be the water penetration over time behind that gutter. So it may not necessarily mean just one repair, it could be significant. And so if we're looking at a house with our client and we see an extensive amount of water damage, the repairs could be more significant than just what shows. And if that buyer at that moment in time has limited funds to do post purchase repairs, that could save them money on a home inspection. It's just maybe beyond their control at that point.
My strategy for having a regular showing with my buyer clients is to start in the basement or where the utilities are available, where all the major components of a house are, your heating system, your electrical, most of the plumbing is visible, structural integrity, everything but the roof essentially as far as your major systems. And the goal is to identify what that looks at in a general sense because I'm not a licensed home inspector. I can't be like, hey, this unit is shot.
Hmm.
But I can say, hey, your home inspector might point out that this might need to be serviced. I don't see any tags on it. So again, having that home inspection as a safety net, but understanding that you're now seeing that, based on our past experience, that one of these systems might need immediate attention. And now you can make decisions accordingly, based on what the numbers show and what those potential projects may cost you.
And another area is in that basement, and I like the fact that you start there. The the issue with termites is prevalent in housing, and there are telltale signs when you're walking through a home, when you're walking through a basement, that might indicate that there's termite infestation, and you can tell sometimes that the damage is significant before you get started with the home inspection. So it's one of those that, with our experience, we can convey that to that buyer at that moment in time, and they can decide right then that we're not getting involved in this house. It just doesn't fit our needs. On the other hand, if they're a contractor or they have family members that are contractors, that may be a viable option for them.
And it's going to be different for each buyer, like we mentioned. But the psychology of going on these showings or going to an open house it's very unfair the way the market is set up. I acknowledge this, but you as a buyer at home might have one opportunity to see a house before you have to make an offer. How are you possibly supposed to make a decision on, is this house going to fit all my needs or most of my needs, by just walking through in a busy open house? It's loud. There's a lot of sensory deprivation. You're not looking for certain things that I'm looking for. So starting in the basement, yeah, but your head is on a swivel. So, which is why the screening process is so important, not just from photos and information provided on the listing itself, but by walking through and getting as much knowledge about the construction and condition as you possibly can.
Yeah, and actually to that point, recently we sold the property in Boston, and this was actually another agent's clients that were relocating. They made the offer without seeing the property. They walked through during their showing with their agent on FaceTime, and they inspected like everything on the doors, like to see how the sturdiness of the doors, how the doors shut, the water pressures, stuff like that. So kudos to that agent and those buyers for their attention to detail on everything. Always risky buying something sight unseen, but they went through great lengths to make sure they were comfortable with the
And
purchase.
imagine the focus, because you're only
Yeah,
able to see one doorknob at a time
yeah,
instead
yeah.
of the decorations. And
Right. And I think that's what that happens on our typical showings. When I'm walking through a house with a buyer client, they're looking at that house as, does it fit their needs, their furniture, the use, what rooms are going to be used for what purpose. At the same time, I'm looking to see if I see three-pronged outlets in the walls and tilts to the door frames or uh, damage to windows that are frosted up. So we're as a team going through that house, and we're both looking at different things to get to the same point.
amazing. Yeah, I want you to avoid situations where you put a property under agreement. I'm talking to you at home. You have the home inspection and you leave there crying. It's happened in our industry. Sometimes it's just a part of the process. Sometimes the home inspectors can't see through walls. I can't see through walls. Things happen. The goal is to minimize risk throughout this process for you. And that's where we add value specifically. Risk tolerance is going to be different for everyone. And as part of our job is making sure you just understand all the factual information about it and potential. And what that risk number looks like to you is going to vary. But the most important thing is to understand it.
Right.
Anything else to add?
I think that's it. Having the right agent help you, I think, is adds value to your process. I think that's the most important lesson.
Avoid financial reality checks. I'm Mike DelRose Jr. with the DelRose McShane team of Caldwell Banker, and thank you for joining us.